Howdy, and welcome back to Communiwhat Wednesday podcast. It's going to be a jam-packed day today because we are going over the entire framework for Communiwhat from beginning to end, starting with intent and ending with control. I'm excited about today too because I got my new whiteboard. Yeah, I know. Cam, buddy of mine that's on another podcast with me, would call that AI slop. But you know what? Give me a biscuit because that I would sop up. That is beautiful. That is what my whiteboard looked like mostly. It was a lot smaller when I thought of Communiwhat in the very beginning back in April of 2010. I'll tell that story a little later, but the framework has been in progress and being developed for quite some time. Um, a good 15 plus years of experience, education, personal experience, skill building has kind of led to what's a way that maybe resonates with people a little differently? What's a way that we can talk through a communication process that's simple and effective and applicable anytime? So that's what Communiwhat is. That right there. Oh, that is so cool. I dig that. Um, so let's jump in. Over the past few weeks, we have been looking through some of this or all of it, but kind of step by step, right? Not just ideas, not just the theory, but the framework and a way to fix communication when it breaks down. And today, we're going to bring everything together because really most communication doesn't fall just in one place, it falls across multiple points. And most people can't identify where it broke. So I put out a poll last Friday, and we will be putting out polls every Friday to talk about on the show. So let's pull up the results of the poll. What was the poll? Where does communication break down for you? And there were answers in every single part of the framework. In the beginning, before we even begin the conversation, in the moment, that would be in at the end in the control piece of the framework, after the conversation, during the conversation, so many places that communication can break down. Oh, looks like overwhelmingly before the conversation starts seems to be where people are aligned. And I get that. I truly believe that you've got to know the intent of the conversation before you even have the conversation and begin to communicate. If you don't know your intentions, they certainly aren't going to know your intentions. Number two, with in the moment, that control piece where we let emotions determine the reality and not the facts. That's a hard one. That's a hard one for me. So I found that interesting though. Um, that intent right before the conversation even begins is where most people felt that too. So most people, me included, we walk away from a conversation or a communication and we're thinking, I said it clearly, I told them what to do, I explained it. But yet you walk away with a bit of uneasiness of, I still don't feel like it landed. That's the gap. And that's the space between what you said and what was understood and what was then actually executed. If you can close that gap, that's where we can begin to change everything. So let's go. Let's talk through the system. I'll show this first. And this is the Communiwhat framework. We begin with intent, right? Why am I communicating this? Am I communicating this to give someone kudos or praise? Am I saying this to gaslight my boss? And am I saying, what's my intent? What am I trying to do here? Is there a directive in this communication? I mean, peel back the layers, right? What really are you trying to accomplish? Why am I communicating this? And before you say anything or send an email or have the conversation, you have to answer the why. Why am I communicating this? Because your intent shapes everything in the conversation. And by shaping everything, I mean your tone, your delivery, your outcome. Are you trying to help someone or are you trying to prove a point? People feel your intent before they fully process your words. And if your intent is off even a little, everything else flows off of that. So be clear about intent. Number two, context. What does the other person need to understand correctly? So if I am trying to what? If I'm trying to get a report created, there has to be a reason that I need this report created. If I walk up to my analyst and I say, I need you to pull last week's KPIs, okay, done. Pretty simple, right? Well, the whole reason you're asking for this report is because there's something potentially in the KPIs you need to look for. So the report comes back and it's a generic KPI report. Well, your analyst didn't have anything but a normal KPI report. The data you received wasn't really what you needed. You needed something else. And so you go back and you let me let me clarify. I need this. Okay. So you get that which you asked for. Um, Still not what you needed because you needed actually a larger set of data so you can trend something. So why would you need larger set of data to trend something? Because there's an issue you're looking for. There's context to the reporting that's needed from your analyst. Do you notice I said clarity and that's number 3? You skip context, clarity doesn't matter. The analyst didn't have context, didn't know duration, didn't know there was a larger issue that was being searched out for. But this happens all the time. You know exactly what you mean, right? But they don't have the background. They don't have the pressure and they don't have any assumptions that you have, not assumptions in a negative way. They don't have any of the assumptions in the data that you have. So they hear your words, but those words don't have meaning. And when context is missing, you're going to get pushback, but it's not about the message or the directive. It's uncomfortable with the confusion. Without context, any feedback is going to feel personal. Any change is going to feel focused or in an attack way, and decisions are going to feel disconnected. People support and will get on board with what they understand. Now we come to clarity. And again, I did mention clarity because while you may believe something failed in one of these steps in the framework, it may not have actually failed there. It failed before there, as in the previous example. The conversation actually probably failed with intent if we're talking about the analyst example, because I wasn't. This is a personal example if you haven't figured that out. It's always amazing to me the more I do this work that I I change the names for the sake of the innocent in a lot of the stories, or I'll change an aspect so maybe that person doesn't realize I'm speaking about them. Um, because this has never been about embarrassing. It's always about growth. It's always about learning, even my own humiliation out front, because it is that important that we grow. And so, my own example, I wasn't clear on intent. I gave no context. And here I thought clarity was the problem. It wasn't. I bailed on the first two steps. Communication is always about not what you said, it's being measured by what people understand and can act on. So it's not handle this quickly, right? We talk about that. It's have this completed by Thursday afternoon. Do better. That's terrible advice for anybody. Where's the clarity? How about do better with your responses? Well, what does that mean? Does that mean I need to be nicer? Does that mean I need to be faster? How about, can you please respond to all emails within 24 hours? Oh, do better on response. I get it. I get it. Thank you for the clarity. Vague communication will absolutely create vague results. And when people are unclear, they don't stop to ask, they guess. And now you have inconsistent execution. Number 4, number 4, confirmation. Did they understand it in the way I intended? Again, we go back to intent. If you don't have intent, then confirmation can't happen. If you don't have intent and context, clarity cannot happen. See where we're going? You got to have them all and you got to work through them all. Oh, it's so much work. Is it? I don't think so. Not broken down this way. Why? Why am I having this discussion? What do they need to do to understand all of what I'm trying to accomplish with this intent? What do I need to be clear or provide extra clarity on in this conversation? Did they, number 4, did they understand it the way I intended? And here we are. This is where most of us, if we turn the lens inward, this is where most of us drop the ball. I know intent is the beginning, and I know I say it's super important, if not the most important, but where communication fails mostly is confirmation. You say what needs to be said, you explain it, and then you ask the question. Does that make sense? What's their response going to be? Yeah, sure. That's not confirmation. That's pleasantry. That's politeness. Real confirmation answers this. Did they understand it the way I intended it? So instead of does that make sense? You ask, I want to make sure we start with the leader starts with the leader first. I want to be sure I articulated this properly. Can you walk me through what you heard and what your next steps are going to be? What does that do? Holy cow, that opens the door for confirmation. It doesn't say, did you understand? Are you stupid? Right? That's not what I said. It opens the door by the leader saying, I am opening up this conversation for questions by stating, I want to make sure you understand. There's nothing attacking, there's nothing accusatory, there's nothing malicious in that approach to asking, do they understand? And what you do is open the door. If you don't confirm it, the communication didn't happen. Finally, I could spend it forever on confirmation. I love confirmation. I'll go off track for a moment for a personal story. Being a parent is hard for those of you that have children. Um, being a parent's tough, and there was a moment I had between my daughter and I where uh, who helps with the show. She's my contracted employee that helps. do a lot of this stuff for me that I can't get to with another full-time job. Um, but there was a time where, she's in her teens, I'm in my 30s and whatever. It was difficult. And um I was going through a lot of things from an education standpoint where, okay, I'm being very intentional about what I'm learning in communication. This was during the time I was getting my MBA, shortly thereafter. And what I found was, um, people tend to react defensive when you take this approach of confirmation, when they don't normally have that approach toward them. So, what does that mean? That means if normally I'm like, "Do you understand? Do you get what I'm saying?" If that's the norm, and one day, magically, it becomes, "Let me restate what you said, blah, 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 blah. I understand that to mean blah, 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 blah." When I said that, it actually kinda triggered my daughter. It was out of the ordinary, out of context for conversation that she had ever been used to. And her reaction was super defensive. So understand that as a leader, if you have behaviors, if you're a parent and you have behaviors that maybe aren't the best or healthiest traits in communication, and you change one of those overnight, there's going to also be potential resistance because what's your intent? The intent then becomes doubted. Is dad being, a smarty pants? Did you say this? Is this what you said? Or is dad being serious? I'm so confused. I don't know what's happening. And so we wall up. I've done this with employees. I've sat employees down and said, how about we have a discussion about why you want to work here? Now, when I say that with that with that employee, their first reaction was, "What am I getting fired?" No, no, you're not getting fired. Why would you say that? I'm coming from a place of compassion, and like it doesn't seem like you really want to work here. You don't act like you want to work here. You're missing work. You're etc. Um, Immediately defensive, and no, but what is the behavior that they, the employee, were used to from me? It was, "You're late again. Why are you da, da, da." And then I flipped the switch to compassion, Dana, and that employee didn't know what to do with that. We're gonna have to do a whole show on flipping the switch of being a different communicator, because as difficult as it is to create new habits, right? Especially in communication. Once you begin doing that, it's a very vast climb to the next plateau of learning communication. Because once you're intentional about the 5 steps, every piece of communication that you experience, you will begin to analyze so that the next time you encounter that individual, you can be a better communicator. I've had folks that are in my purview of coaching that have shared, Dana, the stuff we're talking about is in the forefront of my mind now. And so even at home, I'm looking at things differently. I'm seeing opportunity where before I may have just saw something else. And so, yeah, with communication, as you change, as your behaviors change, as you're being more aligned with being a better communicator, people's reaction, people's reaction are worth considering. It's also important if they know you're working on these things. A vulnerability like that in a leader to say, I know I need to get better, and this is what I'm doing to get better, is exactly part of John Maxwell's 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, the law of the lid. My people are only going to be as great or as awesome as they can be under me. So if my leadership is a level 4, all my employees can only get to level 3. If I'm a level 5 leader, all my employees can now move up to level 4. Why is that important? Because in order to grow others, we have to learn to grow ourselves. So these communication changes can't be, I expect you, the receiver, to talk to me in this way. That would be great. That's kind of what we have Disc for. Hit me up after the show about that. But confirmation is that piece that can truly show outwardly where change is occurring in communication. Because confirmation forces a pause, forces a space to process. And that space to process in our busily structured day is invaluable. When you have the conversations or you have those communications, take advantage of the face to face, the captive audience, and the space that's created in that pause to process for both of you. And then we move to control. This is where everything for me becomes real. So you can have the right intent, give great context, be clear, and confirm it, but you still may lose the moment. That's because control is not about what you say, it's about how you show up. So, a lot of Maxwell disc in this piece. When things get tense, when emotions rise, your deadlines are pressuring, you've got other things at home, and you're a leader, and here we go. You don't lose conversations when you speak, you lose it when you react. Oh, I don't know why I said it that way. It sounded dirty. React. But I mean, you don't lose that conversation through your words. You lose it when you react. And it's at that reaction and any words that follow where things can go awry. Control is that pause ability. I like that word. You heard it here, folks. Pause ability. Within conversations, you must have a pause ability moment because that ability to pause allows you to choose your response. Choosing your response so you can stay aligned with intent. See, this comes all the way back. Your response must align with your intent. And that's kind of where it's missed. They're not separate steps, it's cyclical. We start with intent, we end with control, but control is a verification that we're still aligned with our intent. Intent sets the direction, context then builds the understanding, create clarity creates action, and the confirmation assures alignment. Control then protects and puts a bubble, a space around that moment. If you miss one, the bubble breaks. If you're honest, you already know where your communication breaks. That was the poll, right? Maybe you rush in without intent, full of emotion. Maybe you assume that people will understand or do understand. Maybe you're clear, but you never confirm the message landed, or maybe you just in that moment lose all control. So here's the challenge: we don't try to fix like the entire thing, right? I just said I still have to go through this in my head constantly. Don't pick one. Pick one you resonate with that, ooh, I really feel this might be my challenge. Pick one for the challenge. Not all five, just the one. Where is your communication breaking down the most? Is it in intent? Is it in context? Is it in clarity? Is it in confirmation? Or is it in control? Just start there, because communication is not what you say, it's what is understood and how it's carried out. Communication begins with intention, creates alignment, and drives results. Always, always remember, be the example. You've been listening and watching Communiwhat Wednesday, a live podcast where we break down communication and try to fix it. So if this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it. That's how we get better together. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next episode. And don't forget, every Friday I drop a poll to shape the next Communiwhat Wednesday podcast. Jump in, vote, let me know where communication is breaking down for you. You can always connect with me, find more resources, and work with me directly at my website, dmilm.com. And if you've got a thought, question, or a situation you want me to break down, drop it in the comments. I read them, I use them. I'm here for you. Communicate with intention, create alignment, and drive results. And always remember, be the example.